But it's genuinely an exercise that if you feel very comfortable doing that, you can get some really strong results very, very quickly. So, g'day and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to show you a fantastic exercise that I use clinically and I use personally to improve back mobility. And this exercise is a fantastic way to get to some of the hidden underlying joint capsular stiffnesses in that spine that a lot of traditional exercises and a lot of traditional stretches don't necessarily target. And it basically uses a power band. Now, I'll link this in the description below in case you want to pick one up. But this is a great exercise that you can do as a substitute for anything with a foam roller, with a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball that we go through on the channel quite regularly. So what we want to do here is we're going to take the power band and attach it to something very, very stable. So in this case, I've got a tree stump. And what we want to do is we want to get you into the band so that the band is across at some part of your lower back. So obviously you can maneuver this around based on where you feel you need it, but just start down the base of that spine. So what you can do here is you can step into that band and then pull the band up just sort of above your hip bones there. And the position that we're going to get you into is this prone position. So if you drop down too far, the band will ride up a little bit. So you can do this on your elbows, but in my instance, because I'm relatively flexible, I can come up into a more extended position. But what I want to get you to do here is find a position to have the band that you feel is a little bit stiff. So it can be a little bit awkward to get into it, but once you've done it a couple of times, it's quite easy. And then all I want you to do is squeeze those glutes and draw your belly button in to put your pelvis and low back in a good position, and then come up as far as you feel comfortable. And you'll feel the band will almost be breaking you in half a little bit in a very respectful and gentle way. But what this is doing is this is biasing some of those joints that are stiff in your low back. Now, obviously, this exercise isn't for anyone that has any spinal, stress issues or spondy type issues. Clearly, this is not for you. But for anyone who just has general stiffness, general tightness, and you're looking to mobilize things, this is a really powerful way to get results relatively quickly. So what I also like to do here is once I've got my glute squeezed, my trunk drawn in, you can twist from side to side, or you can sort of laterally bend from side to side, just to bias where you feel you need to be. And then to move the band up a little bit higher, you just wiggle it around to let some of the tension off, wiggle it around to let some of the tension off, or you can just reposition it based on where you want to be, but just make sure that you're extending through where the band is touching your low back. And then as you come up a little bit higher towards that rib cage, you might find there's a whole bunch of stiffness here that you didn't realize that you had, and stiffness that you can get rid of relatively quickly by just letting the band press in here. So again, it's not a hugely technical exercise. It does take a little bit to get into this position, but once you're here, you should find that it's a very, very specific way to segmentally decrease that stiffness. Now, if you know that one side is a little bit stiffer than the other, you can bias that based on how you feel. You can even do some contract relax here where you sort of arch back and then squeeze your abs, tense your low back muscles up, hold that for a couple of seconds. Then when you relax, you'll find that your back will bend a little bit further. You'll be able to go a little bit further in with the band and it won't feel as tight and stiff as it did previously. But if you can just work your way up and down as high as you feel you need to go, and then consistently try and extend through where the band is. So as the band comes up a little bit higher, towards sort of the middle of your rib cage, you can put your hand on the band a little bit more just to emphasize and increase the amount of tension going through that part of your back. So again, we want to make sure that I'm extending through where the band is. I can change the angle as to where I feel I need to be. You can take a deep breath in because I'm on my rib cage now. This is going to really free up some of that stiff tissue. I can contract, relax again, get my abs to contract, get my trunk to contract. And then again, when I release that, it's going to feel a little bit looser. So that particular exercise is a really great way to instantly improve how you move through your trunk. If you can extend backwards as far as you feel comfortable, if you can bend forwards and bend from side to side, you should feel like that band has allowed you to move a little bit further in that space. And as I was saying, it's addressing some of the facet joint or the deeper joint stiffness that doesn't necessarily include the musculature, which is often a strong focus for us. But by targeting the specific joint stiffness in there, we can really release some of that underlying sort of restriction that might ultimately be causing some of the dysfunction that you're going through. Now, obviously, one other thing to remember with this, the reason why these power bands are really good, you can do it with a TheraBand if you want to, but that does tend to bunch up. You do really want to make sure that this stays relatively flat across your back. If it does twist up, it can feel a little bit uncomfortable, but it's generally an exercise that if you feel very comfortable doing that, you can get some really strong results very, very quickly. Let me know in the comments down below how you found that. Obviously, if you're concerned about your specific back condition, you have a label to that, where there is a spondylolisthesis, a stress fracture, or something like that that is a little bit more volatile, then obviously please speak to someone before you do that. The encouraging thing about this exercise is if you know what level you are having an issue with, if you can find some stiffness above that and find some stiffness below that, as long as you're not directly sort of jamming it in through that section, releasing those handbrakes can be quite advantageous for how that specific section functions and feels going forward. But as with everything, you've got to be responsible. Please speak to the relevant parties to make sure that you feel safe doing that. But as I said, it can be a very powerful way to de-stiffen just a basically stiff spine. I hope that was genuinely helpful. If it was, if you did find some genuine benefit from that, please consider leaving a super thanks donation on the video. It's just a great way to help support the channel. I'll be able to keep making these videos and hopefully help you guys along into the future. With that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.